The radio crackled with static as Master Chief Jake pressed his back against the cold concrete wall. Rain hammered against the broken windows of the abandoned building, and lightning split the dark Afghan sky. His team of 8 Navy SEALs had been pinned down for 3 hours in what was supposed to be a simple extraction mission. "Chief, we've got movement on the north side," whispered Petty Officer Collins, his voice barely audible over the storm. Through his night vision goggles, could see at least 20 Taliban fighters surrounding their position. What had started as a routine rescue of a captured intelligence officer had turned into a nightmare. The mission began 12 hours earlier at Forward Operating Base Chapman. Intelligence reports indicated that Lieutenant Sarah, a military analyst, was being held in a compound 15 miles southeast of their base. The extraction team received their briefing at 400 hours, when the base was still quiet except for the distant rumble of generators. "This is a priority mission," said Colonel Martinez, pointing to satellite images on the briefing room screen. "Lieutenant has access to classified information about our operations in this region. We cannot allow that intelligence to fall into enemy hands." Studied the aerial photographs. The compound sat in a valley surrounded by rocky hills, with only one main road leading in and out. It looked straightforward enough for his experienced team. They had conducted dozens of similar operations over the past 6 months. The plan was simple. Insert by helicopter 2 miles from the target, approach on foot under cover of darkness, neutralize any guards, extract the prisoner, and return to the landing zone for pickup. Standard operating procedure for his team, who had worked together for over 2 years. As the sun set behind the mountains, the 8-man team loaded into 2 Black Hawk helicopters. Checked his gear one final time. His M4 carbine was clean and loaded, extra ammunition secured in his tactical vest. Night vision goggles hung around his neck, and his radio was tuned to the command frequency. The flight took 40 minutes through turbulent air. Storm clouds were building on the horizon, but weather reports indicated they would have at least 6 hours before the worst of it hit. Felt confident as he watched the landscape pass below through the helicopter's small window. The insertion went perfectly. Both helicopters landed briefly in a clearing, the SEALs jumped out with their equipment, and the aircraft disappeared into the night sky. Led his team across rough terrain toward the target compound, moving in single file with 10 meters between each man. They reached an observation point on a hill overlooking the compound at 22:30 hours. Through his binoculars, counted 4 guards walking patrol routes around the main building. Thermal imaging showed additional heat signatures inside, but the exact number was unclear due to the building's thick walls. "Alpha Team takes the front entrance, Bravo Team secures the rear," whispered into his headset. "Remember, we need alive and any intelligence materials she might have seen." The assault began at midnight. Alpha Team, led by, approached the front of the compound, while Bravo Team moved to cover the back exit. Everything proceeded according to plan until they breached the main door. Instead of finding a few guards and a prisoner, they walked into an ambush. Automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions inside the building. The Taliban had been waiting for them, somehow knowing they were coming. Fall back," shouted as bullets shattered concrete around his team. They retreated to defensive positions in a partially collapsed building 50 meters away, but enemy fighters quickly surrounded them. That was 3 hours ago. Now, with ammunition running low and no way to contact their extraction helicopters through the storm's interference, his team faced the worst situation of their military careers. Sergeant Williams crawled over to his position, blood seeping through a bandage on his arm. "Chief, I count at least 30 fighters out there now. They've got us surrounded and more keep showing up." Checked his ammunition. 2 magazines left for his rifle plus his sidearm. Around him, his men were in similar situations. They had walked into a trap, and now the enemy was closing in for the kill. The storm intensified, with wind howling through the broken building and rain soaking their gear. Lightning flashes revealed Taliban fighters moving closer, taking cover behind rocks and debris. Knew they had maybe 30 minutes before being overrun. He tried the radio again, hoping to reach their command base or the extraction helicopters. Nothing but static and the distant sound of thunder. The storm was blocking all communications, leaving them completely isolated in enemy territory. "Sir, what are our orders?" asked Collins, reloading his weapon with shaking hands. The youngest member of their team, this was his first deployment to Afghanistan, looked around at his men. These were seasoned warriors who had survived multiple combat deployments, but he could see fear in their eyes. They all understood their situation. Surrounded and cut off from support, their chances of survival were slim. "We hold this position and take as many of them with us as we can," said quietly. "That's what SEALs do." The sound of approaching footsteps mixed with rolling thunder as Taliban fighters moved closer through the storm. Gripped his rifle, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether any of them would see another sunrise. In the distance, muzzle flashes began appearing as the enemy prepared for their final assault. The first shot came from nowhere. Heard the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle cut through the storm, followed immediately by a scream from the Taliban position to their north. Through his night vision, he saw one of the enemy fighters drop behind a pile of rubble, his weapon clattering across the ground. "Where did that come from?" whispered Williams, scanning the surrounding hills with his scope. Studied the trajectory of the shot. The angle suggested it came from a ridge line approximately 800 meters to the west, but he couldn't see any muzzle flash or movement in that direction. Whoever fired that shot was extremely skilled and well concealed. A second shot rang out, and another Taliban fighter fell. This time caught a brief glimpse of the muzzle flash from the same ridge line. The unknown sniper was systematically picking off the enemy fighters who had them surrounded. "Chief, somebody's out there helping us," said Collins, his voice filled with hope for the first time in hours. The Taliban fighters began shouting to each other in Pashto, clearly confused and frightened by the sudden attack from an unknown position. Watched as several of them abandoned their advance and took cover, trying to locate the source of the sniper fire. A third shot dropped another fighter, this one from a position to the east of the compound. The enemy's attention was now divided between the trapped SEALs and the mysterious sniper who seemed to appear and disappear like a ghost in the storm. Tried to use this distraction to improve their position. "Alpha Team, move to the northeast corner. Bravo Team, cover them and prepare to advance." As his men repositioned, the sniper continued working. Shot after precise shot eliminated Taliban fighters who were trying to flank their position. The unknown marksman seemed to anticipate every enemy movement, striking from different angles to prevent the Taliban from determining the shooter's location. The storm provided perfect cover for the sniper's movements. Thunder masked the sound of the shots, and lightning flashes created confusion about muzzle flashes. Rain reduced visibility for the enemy, while the sniper seemed unaffected by the weather conditions. Counted at least 8 confirmed kills from the unknown shooter. Each shot was perfectly placed, taking down fighters who posed the greatest threat to his team's survival. This wasn't random shooting. Someone was deliberately and systematically clearing a path for their escape. "Chief, look at this," said Sergeant Williams, pointing toward the original compound where they were supposed to extract Lieutenant. "I can see heat signatures moving inside. Looks like they're evacuating prisoners." Through his binoculars, saw vehicles arriving at the compound's rear entrance. The Taliban were using the confusion caused by the sniper attack to move their prisoners, including possibly the intelligence officer they came to rescue. The sniper seemed to notice this as well. The next series of shots targeted the fighters around the vehicles, forcing them to take cover and preventing them from completing their evacuation. One shot disabled a truck's front tire, while another took out a fighter who was loading prisoners into a second vehicle. Made a decision. We're moving toward the compound. Our sniper friend is giving us an opportunity, and we need to take it. The 8 SEALs advanced from their defensive position, moving in tactical formation toward the original target building. The mysterious sniper provided overwatch, taking out any Taliban fighter who tried to engage the advancing Americans. As they approached the compound, could hear shouting from inside. Through broken windows, he saw civilians being moved around by armed guards. Some appeared to be prisoners, including at least one person in military clothing who might be Lieutenant. "Breacher up," called, and Williams moved forward with explosive charges to blow the main door. The explosion echoed across the valley, mixing with another crack from the sniper's rifle. As team rushed into the building, they found chaos inside. Taliban fighters were trying to organize a defense while also attempting to move prisoners to vehicles outside. The first room contained 3 guards and 2 civilian prisoners. His team quickly neutralized the guards and secured the civilians, who appeared to be local farmers caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Moving deeper into the building, they found what they were looking for. Lieutenant was in a back room, alive but injured. Her left leg showed signs of torture, and she was barely conscious from dehydration and exhaustion. "Lieutenant, we're here to get you out," said, cutting the ropes binding her hands. "There are others," she whispered weakly. "Intelligence, documents, they have everything." Looked around the room and found a pile of papers and electronic devices that the Taliban had apparently taken from various prisoners. This intelligence could be vital to ongoing operations throughout the region. Outside, the sniper continued providing cover as Taliban reinforcements arrived. Could hear vehicles approaching and automatic weapons fire, but the precision shots from the ridge kept the enemy at a distance. "We need to move now," told his team. "Williams and Collins help the lieutenant. Everyone else grab what intelligence you can carry." As they prepared to evacuate the building, caught sight of movement on the western ridge through a damaged wall. For just a moment, lightning illuminated a figure in camouflage gear, but the person was too far away to identify clearly. The unknown sniper was definitely there, continuing to protect their escape route. The SEALs emerged from the building with Lieutenant and the recovered intelligence materials. The mysterious snipers covering fire had cleared a path toward their original extraction point, but they still had to cross open ground to reach safety. Its radio suddenly crackled to life as the storm began to weaken. "Rescue 6, this is Eagle Flight. We're inbound to your location. Mark your position for extraction." The cavalry was coming, but they still had to survive long enough for the helicopters to arrive. Looked toward the ridge where their guardian angel continued watching over them, wondering who this skilled marksman was and why they were helping a trapped American unit. The helicopter rotors grew louder as team carried Lieutenant across the rocky terrain toward their extraction point. Behind them, Taliban fighters regrouped for one final assault, but the mysterious sniper continued providing cover with devastating accuracy. Called out grid coordinates to the incoming Black Hawks while his men established a defensive perimeter around the landing zone. The storm was finally breaking, with gaps appearing in the cloud cover and rain beginning to lighten. "30 seconds out," came the voice of the lead pilot through his radio. "Be ready for immediate extraction." As the first helicopter descended toward the landing zone, Taliban fighters emerged from multiple positions for a coordinated attack. Saw at least 15 muzzle flashes from the surrounding hills as automatic weapons opened fire on both the helicopter and his team. The sniper's response was immediate and overwhelming. Instead of single, carefully aimed shots, rapid fire began pouring down from the western ridge. Watched in amazement as enemy position after enemy position was silenced by the unknown marksman's devastating fire. The first Black Hawk touched down in a cloud of dust and rotor wash. His team rushed toward it, carrying Lieutenant and the intelligence materials they had recovered. As they approached the aircraft, caught sight of something that made him stop dead in his tracks. Running down from the western ridge toward their position was a lone figure in military gear. The person moved with the fluid grace of a trained soldier, carrying a long-range rifle and several equipment packs. As the figure got closer, realized something that shocked him to his core. The sniper was a woman. She sprinted across the open ground with impressive speed, her long dark hair tied back beneath a tactical cap. Her face was painted with camouflage, but could see determined brown eyes and the confident bearing of an experienced warrior. "Get on the bird," she shouted over the helicopter noise as she approached their position. Hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to trust this unexpected ally, but another burst of Taliban gunfire from the hills convinced him. His team loaded Lieutenant into the helicopter while waited for the mysterious sniper to reach them. As she arrived at the landing zone, got his first clear look at their savior. She was approximately 30 years old, lean and muscular, with the weathered appearance of someone who had spent years in combat zones. Her equipment was top quality but showed signs of extensive use. "Who are you?" shouted over the rotor noise. "Major Russian Special Forces," she replied, climbing into the helicopter behind them. "We can talk once we're airborne." The Black Hawk lifted off just as Taliban fighters reached positions where they could engage the aircraft with rocket-propelled grenades. Watched through the door gunner's window as Major's former sniper positions on the ridge were overrun by enemy fighters who found nothing but empty shell casings. As they gained altitude and flew toward the safety of their forward operating base, studied the Russian officer who had saved their lives. Major sat calmly checking her rifle, apparently unfazed by the harrowing firefight they had just escaped. "Why did you help us?" asked once they were far enough from the landing zone to talk normally. Major looked up from her weapon maintenance. "Because you were trying to rescue someone who didn't deserve to die in that place, and because those Taliban fighters had something that belongs to my government." She reached into one of her equipment packs and pulled out a small electronic device that didn't recognize. "This contains information about Russian military advisors who were captured by the Taliban 3 weeks ago. Your lieutenant was being held in the same compound." "Began to understand. You were conducting your own rescue operation." "Correct. I've been tracking that Taliban cell for 2 weeks, waiting for the right opportunity to extract our people and recover our equipment. When I saw your team approach the compound tonight, I realized we could help each other." Lieutenant, who had been drifting in and out of consciousness, opened her eyes and looked at Major. "You're the woman who was in the cell next to mine. They brought you in 2 days ago." Major nodded. "I allowed myself to be captured so I could locate our missing personnel and gather intelligence. When the storm hit tonight, I escaped and retrieved my equipment that I had hidden outside the compound." Was amazed. "You voluntarily let yourself be captured." "Sometimes the direct approach is the most effective," replied with a slight smile. "I needed to know exactly where our people were being held and what security measures the Taliban had in place. Being on the inside gave me that information." As the helicopter continued toward the American base, Major explained more of her mission. She was part of an elite Russian unit that conducted operations similar to the SEALs, often working alone or in very small teams. Her specialty was long-range marksmanship and deep reconnaissance. "I've been operating in this region for 6 months," she said. "My government wants to maintain good relations with yours, so when I saw American forces in trouble, helping you was an easy decision." Looked out at the landscape passing below them. The storm had completely cleared, and dawn was beginning to break over the mountains. "What about your captured personnel?" "That's phase 2 of my operation," said, checking her equipment. "Now that I know their exact location and have disrupted the Taliban's security, I can extract them myself." The helicopter pilot's voice came through their headsets. 5 minutes to base." As they approached forward operating base, Chapman realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. Russian and American special forces had just worked together in combat, each accomplishing their own mission objectives while supporting the other. Major gathered her gear as the helicopter prepared to land. "Chief, it has been an honor working with you and your team tonight." "The honor was ours, Major. Will we see you again?" Smiled as the helicopter touched down. "In our line of work, you never know when paths might cross again." As the rotors wound down, watched Major disappear into the pre-dawn darkness, heading back into the mountains to continue her own mission. He never learned whether she successfully rescued the Russian personnel, but he never forgot the lone female sniper who had emerged from a storm to save 8 American warriors from certain death. 3 weeks later, received a brief message through official channels. It simply read, "Mission accomplished. Thank you for the cover fire. EV." Lieutenant made a full recovery and returned to duty, bringing with her intelligence that led to the capture of several high-value Taliban targets. The recovered electronic devices provided information that prevented future attacks on coalition forces. And his team returned to their normal rotation of missions, but they never forgot the night when a Russian sniper appeared like a guardian angel to snatch them from the jaws of defeat. In their world of endless conflict and uncertain alliances, it was a reminder that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected sources. The story became legend among special operations forces, passed down through training programs and quiet conversations in secure briefing rooms. The night when weather, courage, and international cooperation combined to turn certain death into miraculous survival.